Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
Southwest Conference, Lee Mayberry, the sophomore from Tulsa, three-pointer finally goes for Byron Smith. Three-point try, Smith, two in a row. He has to hit that shot.
Franchise history.
Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
Finally knocked out to Smith, and the Cougars will run with a man advantage. Smith in the 3-on-2. No look feed, out Church to Morris.
Legends 34 Sports Podcast with your hosts, K-Rino and DJ Wrekk.
What's going on, man? Welcome to another episode of the Legends 34 Podcast. Your big brother K-Rino along with my brother DJ Wrekk is in the building. Today, man, we have a special guest, man. One of our early handful of guests since we've been doing this show, man. This brother is a basketball lifer. That's the way I would describe him. From his days coming up in Louisiana all the way up to going to college and then eventually making his way to the University of Houston and playing ball in the University of Houston. Going on after that to have a pro career in Australia and overseas. My brother has transitioned from that into the coaching ranks, currently coaching Prairie A&M University. He has been the SWAC Coach of the Year in 2019, and he's still will give you them buckets today when he steps on the basketball court. My homie, Mr. Byron Smith. How you feeling, family?
Doing well, K-Rino. Thank you.
Man, we so glad to have you come through and hang out with us, man. Y'all don't know this dude, man. This dude, he's sitting all professional and cool. But, man, like I said, he still plays to this day, even though his profession is coaching. And one of the best basketball players that I've ever played against. I'm just a hood hooper and one of the best basketball players that I know that have come out of our area, man. Man, we're going to get right into it, big brother. Tell us about your early days. When did you fall in love with the game, and who was the person that taught you basketball? Because one thing about you that I know, you're so fundamentally sound. From the footwork, just nobody can rush this guy and taking the kind of shot you want to make him take. What got you started on your basketball journey, B?
Well, real simple. My mother, growing up, absentee father. Mother had a tough task, raised me by herself. So, when you're a single parent, single mother, you're constantly looking for positive male figures for your young son, to look at and try to emulate. So at the age of about 8 years old, it was a basketball game on TV, and she pulled me to the side and she said, "That guy right there is the epitome of class. He's the epitome of athleticism and talent." And she was talking about none other than Dr. J. Julius Erving. Right. So when I saw that, she basically said, "This is who you need to follow. This is who you need to emulate. And this is who you need to aspire to be like." And so at the age of 8, 9 years old is when I saw it, and I was hooked. So my mother was my biggest basketball influence. Introduced the game to me. She was a decent player herself in high school, and worked with me, and just kind of got me going. So at a young age, that's what she did, and I'm grateful to this day that she did that.
Man, that's cool that you would say your mom. Mostly, like you say, it is a father or male figure that put that ball in your hand, and but for her to do that's amazing. But her playing herself, I guess that kind of had that seed. So you got some of those genetics, some of those that DNA from your mom as well.
Correct.
What kind of player were you in high school?
Well, Kay, I'll be honest with you. There was some issues when I was in high school. Yeah. My coaches, we were kind of split. Their assessment of me is I had a bad attitude, yeah, and mine was that I didn't. Yeah. So we could never work out that dynamic.
Right.
But
the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening, because I didn't conform to the way that they felt that I should have conformed in terms of a player, I found myself, not playing a lot early in high school. But so my senior year, okay, was really the only year I got a chance really to play in extensive minutes, and I was able to have the greatest single season in the history of Shreveport-Bossier, which is where I'm from. I averaged 30 points a game my senior year. So I made up for a lot of lost time. Yeah. And from that, I was able to, by the grace of God, get a scholarship, and the rest is history. Yeah.
So you went to Northwestern State. That's the first spot that you went to.
I went there.
Full scholarship and everything.
Full scholarship. Yeah. It was a situation where it was a good fit. It was close to home. Obviously, being raised by my mom, I was kind of a bit of a mama's boy. I didn't want to get too far away. But the bigger schools really didn't know much about me because I only played the 1 year. So I went to Northwestern State. Had a really good freshman year. Surprisingly, led the team in scoring as a freshman.
Right.
And that, to me, let me know that there's another level that I can get to.
Yeah.
And so I called around a bunch of schools, seeing if I could just transfer out. People were like, who is this guy? Byron Smith, who is this guy? Yeah. And so I wasn't able to get much traction. Had to go the junior college route. Went to Tyler Junior College for 1 year. And the funny thing, University of Houston was my dream school. Growing up in Louisiana, it's always LSU, but University of Houston was my dream school because one of the phenomenal players they had during the Five Summer Jamma was a guy by the name of Benny Anders, who I'm sure you guys remember.
Yeah.
Well, Benny grew up in Bernice, Louisiana, which is about 35, 40 minutes from where I grew up. Gotcha. So as a seventh grader, I'm watching this guy running up and down the floor, dunking, alley-oop lobs, him, Clyde Drexler, Michael Young, all the great players. He was just as good as those guys. And I said, you know what? And red was my favorite color, too, K. So it all just kind of came together. Right. And I said, that's a place I'd like to go. Yeah. And it just works out, God's timing. And they saw me play in junior college, offered me a scholarship, and the rest is history.
Man, that answered my next question because I was wondering how you ended up going to these different schools and then eventually landing at U of H. And then when you got to U of H, you made some noise at U of H as well, man. Was scoring always like your strong suit? Because it's like, man, I've never seen nobody we more advanced age now. So I never saw you play in your prime, in your young. Was it always just, I can get a buck? Was y'all just comfortable scoring, or you had to work on it, or what?
Okay, let me correct you. You have seen me in my prime because I'm still in my prime right now. So yeah, you have seen me in my prime. But anyway, to answer your question, scoring has always been obviously that's the highlight. Everybody, you growing up, you don't think about being Dennis Rodman. You think about being Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson, whatever. Guys who pass and shoot. But scoring has always been something that was always attention getting, and people pay for scoring, and that's kind of how the greatest of the greats are known for scoring. So that was something that I've always been very intrigued by and very motivated to be, because when you first start playing, it's always the leading scorer. Oh, I was the leading scorer. So that's, in your mind, that means you're the best player. But as you get older and you mature, you realize that the game is more about being more well-rounded, being able to play both ends of the floor. Today they call it a two-way player.
Right.
But obviously scoring was something that I had a knack for doing. And I think I did a pretty decent job of being able to do that at every level that I've been at.
In the 90s, it was still, U of H was still in y'all remember the old Southwest Conference. Mm-hmm. And you made two-time All Southwest Conference as a player. So I'm assuming that you definitely got to do more than scoring just to do that. Mm-hmm. Coming out of college, was the NBA in your sights? Was that something that you had aspirations for? You kind of figured like I'm just gonna go play overseas, and by that not happening, what do you think was the catalyst behind not necessarily making it into? Did you enter the draft or any of that?
Well, my eligibility was up, and so obviously when your eligibility's up, you're automatically a candidate for the draft. So, my junior year, Kay, we had an unbelievable team, and we had two guys, we had two forwards on our team that were All-American caliber, and both of them were NBA prospects. Yeah. The first one was a guy by the name of Craig Upchurch, who was really, really, really good player, but unfortunately, the injury bug bit him, and he wasn't able to obviously fulfill his golden dream of being an NBA player, but he definitely was talented enough. The other guy, fortunately, did make it to the NBA. Was a two-time NBA world champion, Carl Herrera, that played here with the Rockets, who was my college roommate. Right.
Wow.
So I'm playing with these two guys, and I'm having a lot of success. But at the time, Kay, wasn't really mature enough and smart enough to be able to realize that a lot of my individual success was attributed to the attention that those guys got. So Carl Amigo leaves for the draft. He was a junior. He entered the draft because he was married with a family. And he was drafted, obviously, the second round by the Miami Heat. They ended up getting traded to the Rockets. I don't know if a lot of people remember that. Upchurch ended up having a devastating back injury and had back surgery, so he was out for the entire season. So the dynamics of our team shifted. You take 2 All-American forwards off our team, then, I become the focal point.
Yeah.
But now the defenses are geared towards stopping me as opposed to having to pay attention to those guys. So my scoring was still pretty good from my junior to my senior year, but my shooting percentage was down. Right. So therefore, the NBA people, from what I was told, said that, he didn't really shoot it as well his second year as he did his first year. So unfortunately, I go undrafted. I go to camps, NBA Summer League with the Houston Rockets. Back then, it used to be in San Antonio. They used to call it the Midwest Rookie Review. So I went to camp with the Rockets. But, Reno, to be honest, like a lot of people, they make a lot of excuses as to why they're not successful. But at that point in time, I just didn't play well enough in camp to be someone that the Rockets, would sign. Because at the time, this was, Kenny Smith. Mad Max was coming into Houston at the time. You had Sleepy Floyd, so Avery Johnson. So the Rockets had a slew of guards, and I just wasn't better than any of those guys. So I had to pack my bags and get a passport and head across the waters.
Where did you go first? Did you go Australia first or you go to Europe first?
I went to Australia first.
Yeah.
I went there.
We joke sometimes because I did a show in Australia back in the day, and it was in the city that he played, in Adelaide.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
And when I was down there, I'd be talking my little basketball. So when I was down there, they took me to the arena where the 36ers played.
Clipsal Powerhouse.
Yeah, and somehow they had access to it, and we went there and played ball and shot around and had fun. But then later on, when I met Byron, he was like, "Yeah, I played for Adelaide." I was like, "Man, that's just a small world, man." So, what was it like going overseas to play ball? Was that your first time being at? And was the culture shock and all that? What was that like?
Fortunately for me, I had a couple friends that were in college that were Australian, a couple tennis players. So I had, friendships with a couple people, and they talked a whole lot about Australia and, the opportunities were there. And they never, ever meet a stranger. I'm pretty sure you experienced that when you're there. And you start being around the people there, they make you feel like they've known you forever, right? So they never meet a stranger. So I had a little bit of background information about Australia, but going there, the thing that made it very easy is there's no language barrier. Obviously, they speak English. That made it very easy, but. Huge basketball people, they loved it. The NBA was big at the time over there. So it wasn't a big adjustment, Kay, that I had to make in terms of acclimating to the culture and just the society over there, because the people were super nice and very welcoming. And I fell in like with it. Ended up spending 4 years over there, and then moved around a little bit, South America, a couple places in Europe. But I would say of all the places that I've ever visited and ever been, Australia is always number one to me.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's always it's a spike up when you go somewhere else, because it seemed like they appreciate and treat you a lot better. So you was probably like a NBA caliber guy over there. Like, this guy's the guy.
Absolutely.
But that leads me more into I guess post basketball as a player, because I saw where you ended up eventually coming back to the United States and assistant coaching with Clyde Drexler at U of H. What was that whole? I remember when Clyde got the job and he didn't stay long. No. But how did you end up being added to that staff?
Well, obviously during my U of H days, and we were fortunate when we were players at U of H that our opponents and our sparring partners, if you will, in the summertime were the Houston Rocket players. Because back then, the best pickup basketball was in a place called Robertson Stadium, right? It was called the Hot Box. And it's some legendary stories and some of the best that have come through there. So, the Hakeem Olajuwons, the Clyde Drexlers, obviously the Mad Max, Kenny Smith, all the Rocket play, Otis Thorpe, all those guys would come over in the summertime and play pickup basketball. So, Clyde was, one of those guys that would, not all the time, but he would come. So we kind of got to know each other a little bit. Not that we kept in touch or anything. So when he ended up getting the job, I was there, just, and like I say, God's timing, I was there finishing up my degree, right? So I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I had a familiarity with the current players because they kind of put me in a little bit of a mentor role with them, and having conversations. The basketball coach at the time there would have me come in and talk to the players about obviously the importance of getting a degree, the whole professional basketball opportunities. So I was more of a big brother to several of them. So when Clyde got the job, I was already there. I just graduated. He had somewhat of a familiarity. I'm a former Cougar, so I think it just made sense to add me to the staff because I was already there. So it was just timing. It just worked out, and I think just working hard and just being a good person and keeping your nose clean, the opportunity presented itself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything, Doug? Yeah.
Oh, I have a great question. When did you meet this man, on the court first, or did your ears hear him first on a CD or something, or you saw him at a show in a music fashion or basketball first?
Let me just say this, right? So let me go back to my rapping days, okay?
Okay, now we get the good stuff.
I mean,
Reggie, drop that beat.
LL Cool J, Houdini, Kool Moe D. I mean, that was my era. And back when we were in school, everybody wanted to rap. I mean, everybody wanted to do it. And obviously, NWA coming out, and it just kind of went to another level. But I just happened to see this guy, and he was a decent player. I mean, he wasn't better than me or anything. He was a decent player. But the thing that struck me was that I really didn't know who he was, but he was just a humble guy.
Yes.
I mean, the epitome of humility.
Right.
And I kind of noticed that he started stealing some of my moves. The step back off the one leg and stuff like that. I said, okay, and I said, you know what, you have seen me play, I can tell. But met him on the court. But just kind of just hearing everybody would always speak. He'd always come in with his bag, kind of like hard head lunch pail. He'd come in with his bag, his jacket, take it off, and he'd just go to work. I mean, he's the modern day Kool Moe D. He'd go to work, but just always was a nice person, right? A good person, a humble person, a basketball head like all of us, but just acclimates and just assimilates with everybody. And then when I kind of started to, hear a little bit about the music thing, and I'm hearing people saying this guy's like the GOAT and this and that. I'm like, man, and he, because I had no idea, but he has a tremendous amount of respect for his character as a man, but also for his ability to be able to have impact, through entertainment.
Well, the check is in the mail.
It's similar. It's worth saying. It's the 15th episode, which we've never talked about, right? It's a great segue to a really good story about how this is very similar. I know him in a music fashion. I met him in a studio years ago, right? But as soon as the session was over, let's put it this way: there's other people adjourned to another room, to some extracurricular activities, and me and K sober Joe, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We started talking about the Rockets, right? And I don't think we've ever stopped.
No.
Immediate this passion we had for sports, and every time since then, and it might be the music or a show but we waiting to get that out of the way because me and him start talking about sports, and an hour goes by like schoolgirls. We talk about sports. Yeah. So that's how this show came about. It's literally everybody getting to see me and Kay's conversations about sports. You know what I'm saying? We have such a let alone basketball, and we both played, and the Rockets, and you know what I'm saying. So I feel you, man. You know what I'm saying.
I want to ask you this too, B, just to go back to what we was on. So when you took that job at U of H, had you ever coached anywhere before?
No.
So you just dropped in the grease.
I did, but I think when you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when the end of Jason Kidd's career, when you watched his impact on the floor and how he put everybody in place and where they needed to go, and pretty much knew not only his responsibilities as a point guard, as the quarterback, but he knew where everybody else was supposed to be and what their responsibilities were. So you kind of start, at the end of your career, you kind of start playing as if you're a coach. So I think you just kind of know that's probably, it's just a natural progression that you go into. Most guys that are players, they want to go into some type of, basketball, platform, workout guy, trainer, or coach. But I kind of knew that this was something that, was going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life.
And it's crazy because after that, you took on a lot of different coaching jobs. I saw the Globetrotters on there.
Yes.
At one point.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned Jason Kidd. I mean, he's probably, unfortunately, one of the most underrated players. When people talk about greatest point guards, no one ever says Jason Kidd, and it's like, have you looked at the stats? I mean, all-time steals, all-time assists.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right there with Magic. He's over the all-time greats at point guard, let alone he won a ring as a
player.
Would you call it a player coach that last few years?
Definitely with the Mavericks. Obviously, you had Dirk Nowitzki, who was at the top of the ladder, the food chain, in terms of being one of the best. But I don't think they don't win that championship without Jason Kidd, because Dirk, when you play with Dirk, if you studied his career, he really didn't make players around him better. Right, it's kind of like a la Allen Iverson.
Right,
those guys were so good individually, but they didn't really get a lot. Allen got some assists, but Allen was pretty much a one-man show. Dirk was kind of like that. So if you remove Jason Kidd from that, I think it was 2006. I think is when they won it. I don't think that the Mavericks probably pulled that off. But you're right, he's very underrated, because when you talk about the greatest point guards, obviously you start off with Oscar Robertson, Magic Johnson, and Isaiah Thomas. Those are the names that you hear. But I would say that Jason Kidd probably resurrected more careers of players that were probably 1 foot out the door when he was in New Jersey. He just made that franchise take off to be a lottery franchise, and then 3 years after him being there, they're in the finals against the Lakers. I think that speaks volumes to just how impactful of a player that he was.
Let me ask you this, because, like I say, I look at you as being one of those kind of players who, even though I didn't see you play, just knowing playing against you, you always had the ability to pretty much do what you wanted to do on the basketball court.
Correct.
So when you transition over into the coaching side, a lot of great players have expressed frustration about, I can't control it no more. You know what I'm saying? So did you kind of go through that when you started, even as an assistant before you became a head coach, that like, I wouldn't did it like that? Was that tough?
You know what? Let me just say that is a unbelievable question, right? And you're right. Most good players, when they go into that, they struggle with that. I think that was probably one of the things that when I worked with Clyde, that he struggled with it, because, Clyde's whole thing was that, first of all, in the NBA, the money that these guys make is just it's unbelievable. Why wouldn't you just be motivated to work on your game each and every day?
Come on, man.
Right? But it's not always that way. But here's what I had to do, and this is what I would recommend, that every player that's playing the game that has, and is a decent player, that has an interest in coaching, you have to take some time away. I don't think it's very good to go right from the court to the bench. I think you have to almost detox, okay? And that's what I had to do, because, some of your better players or best players turn out to be not so good coaches because of the question that you just posed. So I think you have to take some time away. And I was amazed that when I got done playing and I got into coaching, just how little I knew about the game, right? You can play the game and understand the game and things like that, but when it comes to articulating it and breaking it down, it can be a daunting task. But I took some time away. Obviously going to school and working on my life after basketball when the ball stops bouncing. So I think when I got into it, but I was very humble too, Kay, because I was around some very, very good coaches and a lot of conversations, a lot of film study, kind of seeing the game from a different perspective. You have to do that, and a lot of guys don't. They leave the court, they go straight to the bench. Some are successful. More often than not, they're not in the beginning. And but I just think taking some time away from it to really look at the game differently, I think that would be beneficial to anybody that's leaving the playing space going into coaching.
When you got approached with the Prairie job, how did that come about? Did you apply for that job, or did they come to you? Because at that point, your coaching resume was kind of extensive at that point, to where it's like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure you felt like you was ready. How did that come about? Did they reach out to you, or did you say, I'm going to go for it and jump in that?
It was funny. I went into Prairie first as an assistant coach, and I think that's right around the time I kind of came in contact with meeting you. Yeah. So I was there, and, obviously had been out for a few years from coaching, just doing some private business and stuff, and then I wanted to get back in. I went in as an assistant and just worked hard, kept my nose to the grind. They made a coaching change. Obviously, I had the most experience of everybody on the staff, and they kind of handed me the baton, gave me the keys, and said, "Hey, you know what? You got to drive this Maybach, in his Bentley, and I've always been an SUV type guy, so I've never really had the fancy, expensive cars, right? Yeah. So it was a bit of a daunting task, but you know, you're motivated. If you're motivated by challenges, you take that challenge. And I took the job. We lost our first 2 games on the road. Then we have the big Texas Southern, which is our rivalry. We played them at home, packed house, and somehow we were able to beat them. And it was the players. Obviously, you know, we all played a part in it, but the players just really wanted it and played hard. But obviously, when you're the coach, you get a lot of the credit. And I think that was, from what I was told, that's when Prairie View felt that I was the right guy to get the job permanent. So I went in, as an interim head coach, right. And then I ended up, turning that into a permanent job, and I've been there for getting ready to be my 10th year.
Yeah, man, yeah.
Well, I'm dying to know, since it seems like you have this secret weapon a lot of coaches don't have. Mm-hmm. So this young buck comes in, he's kind of hard-headed. Mm-hmm. You take him out behind the shed and give him that work on the court and say, hey, man.
I do. And
you got a secret weapon there that I coaches don't got.
And I do. So, you know, and so one of the things I did I thought would be interesting is that, you know, I'm probably the only head coach in the country that has his own highlight tape. And not a coaching highlight tape.
Right.
But a playing highlight tape. Right, and so that's part of that's part of the recruiting pitch that I sent out to everybody who was recruiting. I said, have a look at this. If you think you can do this,
right.
You know, come on down, right? I think it scared off a few guys too, but I think we've been able to sign more than we've lost.
Right,
so,
man,
yes,
that's a cool weapon to have.
Absolutely.
Man. And another thing too, you know, your confidence is always on 1,000. Mm-hmm. So, how have you been able to, if at all, transfer your self-belief, the self-belief that you have yourself, to try to instill in a lot of these players that you might see the potential,
right.
But he may not seem like he knows. Is that something that you purposely do, or it just naturally kind of imposes itself on a player?
It does. I think that the thing that keeps us out of trouble, is when we share our experiences as opposed to giving advice. I think when you give opinions and you give advice, I think you subject yourself to problems.
Right.
But when you share your experiences, and I have a lot of them in basketball, and I tell them from where I came that I wasn't a 5-star. I wasn't, I didn't go to the University of Houston right out of high school. I had to kind of go the long route. I had some trials and tribulations. I got bumped around. It's like being in a dryer, with a basketball. I'm getting bumped around. I was here, I was there. But, you can never lose belief in yourself, right? You have to keep the faith. You have to believe in yourself. And a lot of guys, I do believe, that they stay focused on the wrong thing. And when the opportunity presents itself for you to get up and show and prove, and Kay will appreciate this, when you get the mic in your hand, you got to deliver, right? So I talk to those guys a lot about from where I was and behind the 8 ball, but through hard work, dedication, commitment, not worrying about being afraid to fail, right? Because I don't think you can ever be successful unless you go through some type of failure. You pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, you get back on the horse. So I share a lot of my experiences, the not so good things, but and a lot of young people, they look at where you are, right? They focus on the destination as opposed to the journey.
Come on, man.
Right? So you have to share a lot of things, and I tell them all the time, we're all in this thing together, right? I've been where you guys have been. Someone saying that you're not good enough, not quite good enough, whatever the case may be. But all you need is that one opportunity. When opportunity and preparation come together, great things can happen. So I do share a lot of my experiences with them, Kay, and tell them that you can be that person. But the biggest thing is just being a good teammate. And does your play impact winning?
Right.
That's the biggest thing, too. You get a lot of guys that, like they always say, nobody wants the best player on a bad team. Yeah. Does your play impact winning? You could average 30 points a game. Your team could be 0-30.
Right.
Nobody cares. Who's going to remember? They only remember the ones that were successful.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. As the time went on, you started to build a program up, and y'all won the SWAC tournament in the 2019. Mm-hmm. I can remember kind of watching that process going on because I wanted to see y'all get into the big dance, as they call it, man. Was that the farthest that Prairie View had went, or had they made the tournament before? I know it's rare for them to get to that spot, so that accomplishment in and of itself was
that was
big.
That was the second time that Prairie View made the NCAA tournament, but that was the first time in 22 years that they had been to the NCAA tournament.
Wow.
So I was Prince for a day. Not long,
Yeah.
but that was the furthest they had gone. That was the best single season that Prairie View had ever had in the history of its
Man,
university.
I'm gonna say this because to me, it's like that goes farther to me in my opinion because I always feel like HBCUs and smaller schools like that, they are being tasked to do more with less in a lot of situations.
Absolutely.
So that to get that accomplishment is like it's a testament to the work that you put in and what the program that you're building, and because the next question is connected to that. It got to be difficult on the recruiting side sometimes because you're competing with all the. See, we got schools right here in the city from the University of Houston's and Rice is not as like it was, but it's hard for those schools to keep locals in terms of recruiting guys coming out of high school and all that. So I can imagine. Tell us about any like difficulties in recruiting or how that whole process goes with you.
Well, when I first took the job, obviously, kids growing up. I mean, obviously they've got their sights set on U of H and A&M and Texas and Baylor and TCU, Texas Tech, so forth and so on. And then you drop down from there. You got, North Texas. You got, Texas State. You got Sam Houston. You got, so many schools that are kind of ahead of where we are in terms of their imagination and where they can see themselves playing. So that was always something that was difficult. But the one thing that we always prided ourselves on is that we know how to treat young people. You have to make sure that you treat young people in a way that they can go out, because whatever message you give to that young person he takes out and gives to the world. That becomes his or her thought process. Right. So we always would tell parents that, and I have 2 children of my own, so I would always talk about that I'm going to take care of your children. Because I have 2, and I believe karma's real, right? You mistreat someone's child, it can come back your way. Yeah. But we always talk about these 3 things, getting a quality education at Prairie View, having a great basketball experience, and then being able to transition out into everyday life and society and have great impact. Right. So I think if someone can guarantee me that as a parent and can pretty much stick to that and keep their word, that's going to be enough for me. So that's when I first took the job. Okay, now there's something now that's going on right now that's a phenomenon. It's kind of like the equivalent of K-Rino on the mic. He blows people away, right? I mean, it's like, wow, this is unbelievable. Never seen anything like it. It's called NIL.
Yeah, man.
Right? So now you can start paying the players now. Yeah. Right?
I was about to ask you this question. How does it change this whole construct, atmosphere, right? For good, for bad? We still don't know.
It's to be determined. But I will tell you right now that it has definitely had a huge impact. It has totally reshaped and redefined, the entire amateur system. Right. So it's no longer amateurs anymore. If you're being paid, you're a professional, right? And now it's who can give me the best deal. And Nick Saban, to me, at Alabama, I think he was the greatest college football coach in my era that I have seen. Right. And according to him, because of how the NIL came into play, that pushed him into what I would call an early retirement, right? He's 72 years old, but I definitely think he had enough left in the tank that he could have continued.
Who's a hooper, by the way? I heard that?
Right, absolutely. He is. I heard that, 3-on-3. I have heard some of the noon basketball deals, but, I think, his wife, Terry Saban, was a big part of his recruiting pitch at Alabama, and she said one night they were doing a home visit, and she would always talk to the mothers about, hey, we're going to take care of your son. He's going to this and this is going to happen. And I think the story that Coach said was that when they got in the car and left that particular recruit's home, she said that all the parents wanted to talk about was how much. And he said that it resonated with him, and it really hit him kind of hard that, it's going to be hard to do this, because now it's about who's got the biggest bag, who can offer me the most. Not the best opportunity to be successful, but who can offer me the most. So that makes you become a short-term thinker. Right. Because the NFL is still there. If that's what you grew up wanting, those 3 letters is what you grew up, just like me in the NBA, NFL, not NIL. Right. But if that's what you're coveting, then I think that it totally just revamps this entire system to where you're competing now with dollars. And if you got someone that's got $10 million to pay for NIL, and we've only got 2 or 3, you're probably going to lose those recruits. So it's totally taken it away. It's totally made it very, very difficult to be able to recruit on a level, even playing field right now. So it makes it very, very difficult. Absolutely.
How does that work in terms of like a school like Prairie View with the NIL? Because I don't know the details of how it works. Is because everybody's eligible, or is it certain players that if this guy has a big enough name, then his name, image, and likeness? How does that work how does that benefit players at a school like TSU or Prairie View as opposed to Duke, Michigan, and all that?
Well, in this city, U of H takes up most of the NIL opportunities. But at places like Texas Southern and Prairie View, that's where the social media impact comes in. And social media impacts everyone, even the ones at Ohio State, the biggest of the biggest, who have big NIL opportunities. But our players, they have to kind of, we have obviously NIL seminars, and we have an NIL infrastructure in place. But most of the guys, and we've had 4 or 5 of our players that have gotten some NIL opportunities, but it's pretty much them promoting themselves. It could be a do-rag. It could be a car dealership. It could be body fragrance. It's just kind of whatever people see, how you market yourself. As opposed to at some of the bigger schools, they have a marketing team that markets the 5-star guys coming in. Right. We're pretty much left, and I think that's a great point you made, Reno, when you have to master the art of doing more with less. HBCUs have to do that, so kids have to kind of get their hustle on, if you will, get on social media, work the different platforms, and then they can benefit that way by getting some NIL opportunities.
Man, that's amazing.
How about the coaches? I've never asked this question. I never thought to ask this. Do you get in on that opportunity as well, being a coach in college? Like you said, a Ford dealership wanted to come pay you to do a commercial. Do the coaches in universities get opportunities?
It's more on the lines of just marketing. It wouldn't be NIL. To be honest with you, I'm still waiting on someone to come in and pay me a couple $1 million for that highlight tape that I do have out there, and I'll make sure you guys get a copy of it. And maybe you guys can help me with an opportunity for some endorsements, because I think it's a pretty impressive deal. But sponsorships, marketing opportunities, have been some things that have happened for some of us. Obviously, since I've been at Prairie View, but obviously, okay.
We'll hold that.
Okay.
Good. And because we was talking about like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and a lot of those players who benefited from the NIL, and they are making more money now than the current player that's in the WNBA now. You was talking about how marketing and social media had a lot to do with that. Are any of the guys that you play with, that you're coaching or currently coaching, did you see any NBA potential in any of those guys?
One guy. Yeah. I saw one guy, and he actually signed a contract with the Dallas Mavericks, a young man by the name of Devontae Patterson. Yeah. But I think, you hear this term in basketball a lot of times, a tweener.
Right.
He was about 6'5", 6'6", so not really big enough to play on the inside, but didn't have the necessary skills, shooting skills, ball handling skills to kind of play on the perimeter. But he played so hard. He impacted winning, all-around player, rebounded, could score, could obviously pass, but just not at that level. He wasn't consistent enough to be able to do it, but ended up going to the G League, and he's still playing like right now. So, but he was the one that I thought that would have an opportunity if he stayed with it. But those guys, sometimes their confidence gets hurt, because you got to think about it. It's like the first time since they were ever that they've been cut from a team. So you got to think what that does to you. It's kind of uncharted waters. Yeah. You've been playing since you were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and all of a sudden they say you're not
been the best dude.
Yeah. And then someone says you're not good. Your best is not good enough. I think it kind of does something to you. So I think that's where you see a lot of guys just kind of, go overseas or go an alternative path to be able to continue playing the game.
Man, it's so many people that have made a big living going overseas. They may not have ever made it to the league, but have had long careers overseas, man. And if you land in the right spot, correct me if I'm wrong, you land in the right spot and you're pretty good, you can still make decent money over there doing like that. By you saying he's a tweener, it made me think about how some guys might be a victim of the era that they were born in, the time frame, because you got a guy like Adrian Dantley who was probably 6'5", and how would he fare today being a post player at 6'5", compared to how perimeter-oriented the game is now?
I think he would have fared nicely because the 7-foot guys are out on the 3-point line now.
Talk about
so
that on the
I don't
show,
think it's been an issue for a 6'5" guy to be on the block.
Yeah.
I think it's positionless basketball right now. You see a lot of guards are kind of starting to post because the post is open post now. There's Jokic and Giannis and KD and AD and all these guys are out to the mid-range 15 feet on out. So everything's kind of open. So I think a guy like Adrian Dantley, who's unbelievably skilled, great footwork, played through contact, knew how to play, knew how to score. I thought he would have fared very, very, very well during this era.
You were coaching in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So we know for a fact, anybody that's of age knows that from the late 90s to now, the game is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Did your coaching style have to evolve to kind of adjust to that? You caught up in the old school, this is how we going to do it? I know it's principles of the old that never go away, but how did that adjustment take place for you in terms of like, man, they got 6'11" dudes shooting threes now.
I think Cadillac said it best. They play from 3-point line to 3-point line.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think for me, Kay, offensively, my offensive thought process I've had to tweak it some. I don't think in life that if you're a fundamentalist, I don't think you have to break, but you can bend a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think my defensive principles and things like that is a bit old school. If you ask my players, they'll tell you that you still got to guard the ball. I mean, you got to stay in front of your man, and between the man and the basket.
This is gospel, y'all listen, boys and girls.
But if you pay attention, if you look at the NBA, it's just gotten outrageous now, right? Because they want scoring to be up. People pay for scoring.
Right.
Adam Silver's made a conscious effort to make sure scoring is up. Everything's a foul now. You can't play with any more physicality.
Yeah.
And 165 to 158. I mean, these are some of the scores that you're seeing right now because that's the entertainment value that they want to see, from that viewpoint. And there's not a whole lot of defense being played until April, which is when the playoffs start. Because they know you have to play defense if you want to hold the gold trophy, the Larry O'Brien trophy, and win the championship. But anyway, yeah, my offensive philosophies had to change a little bit. You have to give these guys a little bit more freedom.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have to make a deal with them that if I get to get you to play defense the way that I want you to play, then you have to kind of give them some freedom on the offensive end and kind of allow the bigger. You can't call them bigs anymore. You can't call a 7-foot guy. You can't call them a big. They don't.
It's positions.
You have to say it's position. You got to say bigger players.
Yeah.
You got to be specific and say bigger players.
Right.
Because they think big means you're gonna throw me down there in the box and in the hole, and I'm not gonna be able to, get my Jokic on. And Jokic is an anomaly.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
The world has never seen, in my opinion, I don't think the basketball world has never seen anything like him.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. You got to be careful because you got this kid Wemby that's coming up now. That's pretty special in his own right.
Yeah.
They're different type of players,
Right.
but those type of players don't come around very often.
Right.
The skill set, the size, and the grace, and the footwork, and the passing ability, and the scoring ability, and the toughness that Jokic possesses. He's one of one right now.
Yeah.
He's one of one right now.
I think this story might illustrate this point the best. And I can't believe I'm forgetting it. All these episodes we've had since I heard this story. I think I texted you about this, and we've yet to talk about this. What better show to talk about this topic? I'm watching basketball a few months ago. And of course, y'all know, watch the show, my Wrekk rant kicked in. And I'm hearing an announcer talk to another announcer. I think this was an NBA game. It was an NBA game. And they started talking about a 4-point line. And that some teams have incorporated this in practice. And I'm like, ooh, come to find out, Atlanta Hawks have incorporated a 4-point line in their practice. If they don't tell you where this league is going when you say what frustrates you, I don't know what does. It's like, really?
Yeah.
We're going there now?
Yeah. I think that's all to appease Trae Young. because I don't think anybody else is brave enough to shoot. Maybe Bogdanovic. I forgot he's there too. Obviously, who had a really good Olympics, a Serbian player.
But he's done crying from that loss.
Exactly. But I think that's to appease Trae Young, because he shoots it as soon as he crosses half court. Ball goes up.
See, when they start, when the league start getting gimmicky like that, man, I'm gonna be done with it, man. You know, it's hard to watch now because of what you were saying, how easy it is. And scoring the All-Star game is a joke and all that crap, man. But when they start getting to the point where they doing that kind of stuff, I'm checking out, man. I'm a purist, but I do accept the changes in the evolution of the game in certain aspects. But at the end of the day, man, just stick to the template that we've been accustomed to and adjust to that. But don't add no 4-point line and 5-point line. I ain't into all that type of stuff, man.
I agree, 100%.
I wanted to ask you this too, man, because like I say, now you said you coming up on your 10th year coaching at Prairie View, and I know you happy where you are. Did you have any thoughts or aspirations of like maybe going NBA at some point, going through those ranks, or maybe a bigger school, and even on a collegiate level?
You know what? I always say, be where your feet are. Yeah. Be appreciative of the opportunity that you have. I think it's 125 African American head coaches in college basketball, and I'm one of them. Right. So with that, I owe a tremendous amount of gratitude. Obviously to the good Lord. So I'm appreciative of it. But I think, again, when you're motivated by challenges, I think we all, look to say, well, you know what, I wonder, can I have success in this particular space? Or can I take this show on the road and go somewhere else and kind of create some of the same magic that we did at Prairie View for a period of time? I think the NBA, my abrupt and abrasive straightforwardness probably would prohibit me from being successful there at the NBA level, because I'm like you, Kale. I'm a purist. I know what the game is all about, how it should be. Certain things are just non-negotiable, right? And effort is one of them.
Come on, man.
And I just think that you just see some guys, and I've never played in the NBA, so I'm very careful about speaking to things that which I know. But your eyes don't lie to you, and you just see some guys that may not always show the appreciation for having an opportunity to play the greatest team sport the sport that's in the world today, in my opinion.
Mine too.
So you can't, you have to be appreciative. So I think I'm the type of person that probably would say something to LeBron. Or AD. And it probably would, get fired, but I'm still got to say it.
To be honest, though, and you're right, I would say 95% of the coaches in the league, they do kind of cater to the star power.
Absolutely.
And because of the fact that I don't want them to lose my job, because the coaches are making money that players in the 80s and 90s never made. Coaches getting $10 million a year.
Yeah, right.
So, I understand that side of it, but there is a percentage of coach. Like, we got one right here in Houston. Ime Udoka don't play.
He doesn't.
You know what I'm saying? He'll tell you straight up. And guys like, I saw Ty Lue check LeBron in the huddle one time some years back. So I think it's still a place for that type of coach. Pop is on the way out, but he's that kind of coach, man. The diva mentality of a lot of these players kind of interferes with a coach's ability to not just coach, but to reprimand and discipline and all that. But man, I think it's a place for it, and players are always made better. When I was in school, we had a coach at Sterling named Coach Shaw. Man, he'd cuss you out, and you wasn't on the team. He used to be cussed out in the hallway. But they had his funeral where they brought his body to the school when he passed away. And it was packed.
Right.
Everybody in there loved Coach Shaw, but I bet everybody in there been cussed out or talked crazy to him at some point. I just think when the result hits, the appreciation will follow that.
I think the one of the key parts of being a strong disciplinarian and being able to get in a player's face is most of the coaches that are allowed to do that, they won a championship.
Yeah, they got a little cachet.
And so Ime Udoka has never won one as a head coach, but I think he was part of Pop's staff when they won it in San Antonio. Yeah. I think Ty Lue obviously has won a championship. So I think it's one of those kind of deals where you have to have that cachet. I believe, or just be a Jason Kidd type player that was that well respected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That from that standpoint, and people just respect what he's saying.
No doubt. Yeah, but well, I wanted to ask you this here too, man, because I'm a professional hood hooper, man. You know, as everybody knows, man. Went to McGregor Park University, but in my day, man, when I talk about guys that I played with and against, just playing in the neighborhood, I always mention your name. I mentioned Clyde. I mentioned Kenny Smith, Michael Richardson that played at Texas, and just guys on that couch, and a bunch of dudes who never played really anywhere, but they just was cold like that.
Right.
A guy like Dwayne and all of that.
Yes.
Who were some of the dudes you played against, just some of the greats you played? I know you mentioned a little bit of it earlier, but some of the guys that you've been on the court with, man, and shared, like, man, I can't believe I'm out here hooping with these dudes.
The first guy probably would have been Michael Young.
Okay.
Who was like, he was a big brother to me. We worked on staff together at University of Houston. He was in my wedding.
Yeah.
He just kind of took me in. Just a gracious, kind person, but an unbelievable basketball player. A very underrated basketball player. When you play with Akeem and Clyde, you're probably going to kind of get left out. You get a mention.
Right.
But he was an unbelievable player. Obviously had an opportunity to play in the NBA for a little bit, but had a historic career, overseas. And, I think he's on the 50 greatest European basketball players of all time.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that, but he's so humble, a lot like yourself. He doesn't talk much about himself, but he was probably the first one that had eye recognition that I saw. And then obviously, with Clyde, Hakeem, all those guys are coming through. Probably one of the, I don't tell this story a lot, but one of the best basketball players that, I had been around, that I had a chance to compete against, was a Fifth Ward legend himself, Eddie Combo.
Okay.
And it was funny that Eddie Combo was at the University of Houston when I first came to the University of Houston, but ended up transferring. And he ended up transferring to an NAIA school and had great success. But I tell people all the time, had Eddie Combo stayed at the University of Houston, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this seat right now, because I probably would be one of those people that's down at Fundy that's cheering for K-Rino as opposed to K-Rino cheering for him. And so, but there's been a lot of them. Rob Williams obviously had an opportunity to be in the same space, share the same space with him. The crazy thing about it, when I first came to the University of Houston, John Lucas was still playing.
Yeah.
That's how old I am, how long I've been around. He was still playing. Right. He was just getting ready to go into retirement. So, but it's a bunch of them. Like you say, Dwayne Rogers is, what he's been able to accomplish in this city with, never really playing in college or going to college or whatever, but just one of the all-time greats. It's been a lot of guys. Houston has a rich basketball tradition. A lot of players that probably don't get the mention that they deserve. A Jackie Dorsey, that's another guy that was, obviously he was an NBA player. Didn't have a long career, but was just an unbelievable person, first and foremost, but an unbelievable basketball player. So the list just kind of goes on and on and on. Larry Mishaw, it's just a lot of great players that I've had an opportunity to compete and play against. So definitely fortunate to be. Houston's been great to me. It's my home now, but the basketball experiences have definitely been the highlight of my time here in Houston, for sure.
Well, like I say, man, this dude, even to this day, because I know him as a player. We played in leagues together, and he's the first option. Second option. I want to ask you before we go, man. Everybody talks about this big GOAT debate and all, and a lot of people don't like to mess with it. I gotta ask you, Pete, of all time, man, who's the GOAT, man? I ain't even throw no names out there. Who's the greatest basketball player in your opinion, NBA player of all time?
I think it's GOAT. I was gonna say K-Rino. You start at the top and work your way down.
Look, we talk about hooping.
K, respectfully, I would, because I think if you spend too much time kind of thinking about it, you just kind of go back and forth. So I almost say respectfully with Michael Jordan. And the reason why I say that is because I felt that when he was at the top of his game athletically, there was nobody that could do the things that he did. And obviously when his athleticism kind of declined a bit, I thought he was the best, below the rim player because of his footwork and his understanding of the game. But I also look at how the other great players that have come through and played in the NBA, they all say Mike.
Right.
They all say Mike, and obviously it's eras and things like that. we never thought we would see anything like Michael Jordan, and then here comes a LeBron James, right? We probably never thought we would see, anybody that would get the hype that LeBron James got when he was coming to the NBA, and then you look at Victor Wembanyama. So this is going to continue, right? There is no absolute, right? But I would say, in my opinion, from what I've seen, and just the reaction of the greatest, not named Michael Jordan, I'm going to say Michael Jordan is the greatest player to ever play the game.
2 more questions before I get y'all on this note. Okay, now I'm going to go positions because, if it's Mike's the GOAT, he's a 2 guard. Best center ever?
Kareem.
Best, it's positionless now, but we're going back. Small forward.
That's an interesting one. Best small forward of all time, Dr. J.
Dr. J.
Gotta go with Doc.
Okay, best power forward of all time.
Ooh, man, I tell you that's a tough one, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with Tim Duncan.
That's what I was thinking. All right, okay. Now, last question I want to ask. I meant to ask you this earlier because, like I was saying, I was joking, but I was serious. Like when you playing ball, man, your footwork.
Hold on a second. Put another one in.
Yeah, we got to get this fixed because this question is about me.
You good? Yeah, my last question be, like I say, your footwork is something like I haven't really seen. Who taught you your footwork, your patience, your fundamental of your footwork and all that?
Unbelievable question, Kate. And so it's parts to this. So what I would tell you first and foremost is the players who struggle the most with having good footwork are your most athletic players.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they never needed it.
They never needed
it.
Yeah. That's why I say Michael Jordan was so special. Kobe was so special, very athletic, but then when the athleticism kind of declined, they still were at the top of their game because of the footwork and the studying. But I came through during an era that Hakeem Olajuwon, what he did during the 93 and 94 and 95, just he put on unbelievable footwork, balance, clinics, right? And so everybody was watching that, right? And so you're watching that, and obviously I never was a super athletic player. So obviously, my inclination was, I need to focus on being able to get separation. I'm not super quick. I don't jump over anybody. So I think that makes you focus more on footwork and how to set your man up and playing angles and how to use your body, right? And then I was playing with a guy that I was playing with and competing against all the time that kind of adopted the footwork, which is Dwayne Rogers. We talked about him, the legend himself. But I think, and then obviously here comes a guy like Sam Cassell, who played with Hakeem Olajuwon, who watched a lot of that stuff. And I think but I would say Hakeem is the person that influenced all of us from a footwork standpoint. The only difference is he was 6'10", 6'11". We weren't that tall. But I think it's just like, it's fundamental stuff. You have to take baby steps and really work towards that. But again, I think the least athletic guys are the ones that have the ability to have more impact with footwork.
Dope, man. Well, we've been well fed. The homie DJ Wrekk, he's still with us, but he ain't with us.
Still alive.
B, we want to thank you, man, for coming through and sharing this knowledge and this information with us, man, and wish you much success on the upcoming year at Prairie University, man, with the recruiting class all the way up to when the season starts. Want to see you in that tournament real soon. I caught you on ESPN. Look, he the same guy regardless of where he at. They was on ESPN playing one night, and they won the game, and I looked up Byron going through the crowd, high-fiving. That's how he is at all times, man. So we appreciate you coming through, B. Number love and respect to you, my brother. Legends 34 with your big brother K-Rino and DJ Wrekk, my homie. And we will catch y'all next time. Peace and love.
Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
The Houston Astros are world champions for the first time in franchise history.
Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
L34 Sports Podcast with your hosts, K-Rino and DJ Wrekk.